Hello there. How are you all? Hello, Evelyn. Hello, Sean. Hello, Raising River Babies. Hello, I think you must be new. At least I haven't seen your wonderful name before. Hello, Pauline, and hello, Mary. How nice to see you all, have you all with me, and anyone else who's gotten on since I started. So, my name's Gildart. This is Fireside Reading. And day two, I'm feeling a little bit better today. Second day of the year, and I hope that that will continue a little bit every day until I get over this cold or whatever it is. Not COVID, I'm told. So we were in Italy for Christmas. We came back just before the New Year, and we resumed yesterday. There were so many lovely comments there. Thank you all for joining me. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking when you take a little time off, and I wonder whether everyone will realize that I'm starting again. And then many people were there yesterday, and I loved hearing about your Christmases. I'm so glad everyone's Christmas sounded like it was lovely, so that's great. Ours was lovely, and I will put a few photographs of it up on Instagram in the next few weeks and show you a few pictures of Rome and Viterbo and Tuscany. We were at a place called Lucca for Christmas, and it just really had a beautiful time, just outside Lucca, and really had a lovely, lovely time. And the world seems to be largely open, people going about their business, which is so relieving. When we started Fireside Reading, everything was shut down. And you never really know what it's like out there in the world. You know what it's like at home. But it's different in Italy, in that everybody's just going about their business, it seems. Very lovely to be there, to have time with our daughter, and lovely, as always, to get home. And lovely to resume Fireside Reading. We are back to A Passage to India. We have about another week's worth of reading to go. And then we will choose a new book. I have your suggestions. Anybody want to give any suggestions? The books need to be in the public domain, and but I have a few ideas, but I'll tell you what the next one is. But if you have any suggestions to put into the hat, please send them along. You can always reach me at firesidereadingwithgildart@gmail.com. Welcome to a fireside reading of A Passage to India. Chapter 31, Part 2. He found Aziz overtired and dispirited, and he determined not to allude to their misunderstanding until the end of the evening. It would be more acceptable then. He made a clean breast about the club, said he had only gone under compulsion, and should never attend again unless the order was renewed. In other words, probably never, for I'm going to England quite soon. I thought you might end in England, he said very quietly, then changed the conversation. Rather awkwardly, they ate their dinner and then went out to sit in the Mogul garden house. I'm only going for a little time, an official business. My service is anxious to get me away from Chandrapur for a bit. It is obliged to value me highly, but does not care for me. The situation is somewhat humorous. What is the nature of the business? Will it leave you much spare time? Enough to see my friends. I expected you to make such a reply. You are a faithful friend. Shall we now talk about something else? Willingly. What subject? Poetry, he said, with tears in his eyes. Let us discuss. why poetry has lost the power of making men brave. My mother's father was also a poet, and fought against you in the mutiny. I might equal him if there was another mutiny. As it is, I am a doctor who has won a case and has 3 children to support, and whose chief subject of conversation is official plans. Let us talk about poetry. He turned his mind to the innocuous subject. You people are sadly circumstanced. Whatever are you to write about? You cannot say the rose is faded forevermore. We know it's faded, yet you can't have patriotic poetry of the India, my India type, when it's nobody's India. I like this conversation. It may lead to something interesting. You are quite right in thinking that poetry must touch life. When I knew you first, you used it as an incantation. I was a child when you knew me first. Everyone was my friend then. The friend, a Persian expression for God. But I do not want to be a religious poet either. I hoped you would be. Why, when you yourself are an atheist? There is something in religion that may not be true, but has not yet been sung. Explain in detail. Something that the Hindus have perhaps found. Let them sing it. Hindus are unable to sing. Cyril, you sometimes make a sensible remark. That will do for poetry for the present. Let us now return to your English visit. We haven't discussed poetry for 2 seconds, said the other, smiling. But Aziz was addicted to cameos. He held the tiny conversation in his hand and felt it epitomized his problem. For an instant, he recalled his wife, and as happens when a memory is intense, the past became the future, and he saw her with him in a quiet Hindu jungle native state, far away from foreigners. He said, I suppose you will visit Miss Quested. If I have time. It will be strange seeing her in Hampstead. What is Hampstead? An artistic and thoughtful little suburb of London. And there she lives in comfort. You will enjoy seeing her. Dear me, I've got a headache this evening. Perhaps I'm going to have cholera. With your permission, I'll leave early. When would you like the carriage? Don't trouble, I'll bike. But you haven't got your bicycle. My carriage fetched you. Let it take you away. Sound reasoning, he said, trying to be gay. I have not got my bicycle, but I am seen too often in your carriage. I am thought to take advantage of your generosity by Mr. Ramchand. He was out of sorts and uneasy. The conversation jumped from topic to topic in a broken-backed fashion. They were affectionate and intimate, but nothing clicked tight. Aziz, you have forgiven me the stupid remark I made this morning, when you called me a little rotter. Yes, to my eternal confusion. You know how fond I am of you. That is nothing, of course. We all of us make mistakes. In a friendship such as ours, a few slips are of no consequence. But as he drove off, something depressed him. A dull pain of body or mind waiting to rise to the surface. When he reached the bungalow, he wanted to return and say something very affectionate. Instead, he gave the Sais a heavy tip and sat down gloomily on the bed, and Hassan massaged him incompetently. The eye flies had colonized the top of the Almera. The red stains on the Durry were thicker, for Mohammed Latif had slept there during his imprisonment and spat a good deal. The table drawer was scarred where the police had forced it open. Everything in Chandrapur was used up, including the air. The trouble rose to the surface now. He was suspicious. He suspected his friend of intending to marry Miss Quested for the sake of her money and of going to England for that purpose. Huzor, for he had muttered. No. Huzor, for he had muttered. Look at those flies on the ceiling. Why have you not drowned them? Huzor, they return, like all evil things. To divert the conversation, Hassan related how the kitchen boy had killed a snake, good, but killed it by cutting it in two, bad, because it becomes two snakes. When he breaks a plate, does it become two plates? Glasses and a new teapot will similarly be required. Also, for myself, a coat. As he sighed, each for himself. One man needs a coat, another a rich wife. Each approaches his goal by a clever detour. Fielding had saved the girl a fine of 20,000 rupees, and now followed her to England. If he desired to marry her, all was explained. She would bring him a larger dowry. Aziz did not believe his own suspicions. Better if he had, for then he would have denounced and cleared the situation up. Suspicion and belief could, in his mind, exist side by side. They sprang from different sources and need never intermingle. Suspicion, in the Oriental, is a sort of malignant tumor, a mental malady that makes him self-conscious and unfriendly suddenly. He trusts and mistrusts at the same time in a way the Westerner cannot comprehend. It is his demon, as the Westerner's is hypocrisy. Aziz was seized by it, and his fancy built a satanic castle, of which the foundation had been laid when he talked at Dil Kusha under the stars. The girl had surely been Cyril's mistress when she stopped in the college. Mohammed Latif was right. But was that all? Perhaps it was Cyril who followed her into the cave. No, impossible. Cyril hadn't been on the Kawadal at all. Impossible. Ridiculous. Yet the fancy left him trembling with misery. Such treachery, if true, would have been the worst in Indian history. Nothing so vile, not even the murder of Asful Khan by Sivaji. He was shaken, as though by a truth, and told Hassan to leave him. Next day, he decided to take his children back to Mussoorie. They had come down for the trial that he might bid them farewell, and had stayed on at Hamidullah's for the rejoicings. Major Roberts would give him leave, and during his absence, Fielding would go off to England. The idea suited both his beliefs and his suspicions. Events would prove which was right and preserve, in either case, his dignity. Fielding was conscious of something hostile, and because he was really fond of Aziz, his optimism failed him. Traveling light is less easy as soon as affection is involved. Unable to jog forward in the serene hope that all would come right, he wrote an elaborate letter in the rather modern style. "It is on my mind that you think me a prude about women. I had rather you thought anything else of me. If I live impeccably now, it's only because I am well on the 40s, a period of revision. In the 80s, I shall revise again, and before the 90s come, I shall be revised. But, alive or dead, I am absolutely devoid of morals. Do kindly grasp this about me." Aziz did not care for the letter at all. It hurt his delicacy. He liked confidences, however gross, but generalizations and comparisons always repelled him. Life is not a scientific manual. He replied coldly, regretting his inability to return from Mussoorie before his friend sailed. "But I must take my poor little holiday while I can. All must be economy henceforward. All hopes of Kashmir have vanished forever and ever. When you return, I shall be slaving far away in some new post." And Fielding went. And in the last gutterings of Chandrapur, heaven and earth both looking like toffee, the Indians' bad fancies were confirmed. His friends encouraged them, for though they had liked the principal, they felt uneasy at his getting to know so much about their private affairs. Mahmud Ali soon declared that treachery was afoot. Hamidullah murmured, "Certainly of late he no longer addressed us with his former frankness," and warned Aziz not to expect too much. He and she are, after all, both members of another race. Where are my 20,000 rupees? He thought. He was absolutely indifferent to money, not merely generous with it, but promptly paying his debts when he could remember to do so. Yet these rupees haunted his mind because he had been tricked about them and allowed them to escape overseas, like so much of the wealth of India. Cyril would marry Miss Quested. He grew certain of it. All the unexplained residue of the Marabar contributing. It was the natural conclusion of the horrible, senseless picnic, and before long he persuaded himself that the wedding had actually taken place. Thank you all for joining me. More tomorrow, the next chapter of A Passage to India. I very much am looking forward to this and to moving to the end of this book. Thanks so much for joining me, and it's lovely to be back. But until I see you all tomorrow, everyone, please stay very well.